yourself by becoming rich.
Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
I say when we
You can
sell.
wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM, 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 GM. All right. Tuesday, 24th of September, daily levels. Let's go. So, Bitcoin's looking pretty good here. Spending its time consolidating inside the previous value area. But where I want to look at now is from the top to the bottom of the value area that we were in. And keep in mind these. No, I want to have all 50, 100, 200. Here we go. All right. And the bands. And get this on. So, how are we looking? Looking good. BTC is working its way back through the range, through resistance. Definitely finding some resistance here at the old point of control, which is right around that 64, 65 area, which is right around where the last resistance was. So, pretty normal place for it to stop. Bears at this point are really coping and just hoping that this is going to act like resistance like it did before. Don't think it will. This time, it certainly seems to be many things are different. But, could it pull back from here? Sure. It's tried to, on lower time frames, it's tried to once, twice, 3 times already on 3 separate days. So we had Friday, end of the week. We had Sunday going into Monday. And then we had obviously today, right off the open. And so I think it's compressing. I would guess that we're going to chop like that and continue compressing until the end of the week. So I think we'll take out the highs, probably not go above 65. We'll probably not go down that low either, unless there's a big build-up of longs. But I suspect that the next move is going to be up. And from there, you might see a rejection, more of a chop. But I think that there is, at the moment, probably a lot of positioning still needs to unwind on the short side to the upside. That would be my best guess at this point. Because what we can see, 50, 100, 200. So the 4-hour trend's intact. In terms of getting an entry or a retest of those bands, it's best to wait. We probably continue higher in the near term, and then you want to wait until price comes back, consolidates, and those bands start to catch up, and you maybe get a retest of them to set up the next leg, because it's all about the retest. When the bands flipped bullish here, the retest was not satisfactory. Price traded down through the bands instead of retesting and holding. So you want to give it time to see that to really determine how this lower time frame trend is doing. So that's the 4-hour trend. You zoom out then to the daily. Price is also going through a slow reclaim of the daily trend, which isn't yet, right? 100 is above the 50. So there's this, and this is slower moving, of course, because it's a daily chart. This is going to take, several days, if not another week, probably a week or more before this crosses back to bullish. And at that point, you'd be looking at a retest or compression or consolidation on there. All of this is to say 65K is resistance till Friday because of options. It obviously can be resistance anyway. If we clear 65, you can see a very fast move to 70. I think that's unlikely before Friday, but it could happen. And then beyond that, really, if you're looking for a pullback or a retest or price to go lower, no lower than 61.6. It happens to be this value area low. It is also a gap from when we broke out around there. It's also into the bands. It's also, I think something else, man. There's a bunch of confluence around that area. Yeah. It's also the top end of this previous period phase of price action, which if you fall back inside, is not so good. If you stay above, it's 100%. So that's the absolute lowest that I would see price going. And I would suspect that price goes up first and then back down to it. Meaning we maybe do something like this, attracting some longs, you then come back, you sweep out those longs, you then consolidate, and away you go towards 70. So it moves up, traps people, essentially. Move up, break out, trap some highs above the breakout, leave behind this little area of liquidity below, come back down, attack that liquidity, reclaim, hold, and away we go. That's kind of how I'm looking at it to go as of right now. As for Ethereum, Ethereum's following the squiggle. Pretty easy to see why. It's just it was oversold. It tried to go lower, failed to go lower. It's just going to go straight up, probably to 2,800 without much, or 3K or whatever. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of resistance here. Not because Ethereum's great, but because it's just so beaten down. You do have obviously an important level here. Previous support, flip to resistance. So if it doesn't stop at 28, it goes to 3. And we'll see where it goes from there. Whether it goes 28 rejects, whether it goes 3K rejects, neither of those are bullish. It has to do what I've shown here. It has to reclaim and actually hold to then have a move towards 35, 36. That's where I'd be more interested in trading ETH, is when it reclaims the value area. So whenever it's reclaiming this value area, longs to 3,600. I think that's where ETH has got the best risk-reward probabilistic setups. Until then, I don't really give a shit, because it could rally all the way up, all the way down, and have to chop for fucking ages. Solana's a really simple one. In fact, we can actually drag this all the way across. Well, we can see how Sol has been moving from top to bottom. Right, that's the value area that we're in right now. We held it at the lows. It's going to go to the highs. I have no doubt about that. Don't know when. It might be the slow kind of grinding its way through. It might just be a fast move up. Either of those paths, that's where the difference comes in. Directionally, I think it goes to 170 easily. Path-wise, how does it get there? Who knows? In a perfect world, if it dropped back here and held again, you could actually have probably quite a nice trade from the low to the high. I don't think we'll get that retest. We've had one, we've had two. We're starting to break structure to the upside, so I would guess it just kind of grinds its way there, would be my guess. And not really worth trading. If you look at like the example of Ethereum, which is like down here, you're looking at Ethereum to reclaim there and then trade it to there. So like it'd be the equivalent of getting onto Solana there. I don't think there's a huge amount of edge where it is right now, but you do have a directional bias. My directional bias intraday with something like Sol would be long until it touches 170. At that point, I would ease off. I would not be looking for shorts here, because what are you shorting into? You've really got, there you go. You've really got nothing to short into. Shorting down into what? Massive support and value area low with a point of control in between? Not really. Fuck me, and you stop switching the chart. So not for me. Not for me. How are some of these leaders, previous leaders doing? Sui, yeah, hit the daily order block and is finding resistance. There's nothing bearish until red line is breached. Then you could see it move down towards some of those gaps. Daily order block should hold as resistance. I would guess you're going to see one of these two blue paths where it chops. If it gets actually through the daily OB, that's when all-time high is pretty much all-time high. Next. I see it getting through that area. And of course there's resistance up here, but there's not really. If you look at I think it was from the top to the bottom, wasn't it? Right? If you look at all the volume distribution from top to bottom, massive gap of volume up here, gets even thinner above. And even when you go from the bottom to the top and all the way back down. So if you take everything from the low of the bear market to the peak back to the low, right? All of that. Look where the volume is thinnest, above the daily OB. Above that daily OB, Sui's just gonna shoot to the highs. But this is the biggest area of resistance above here. This is the largest volume node, a big cluster of supply here. If you're looking at these kind of 4 or 5 volume nodes there. So absolutely a place where you'd expect it to reject, but it will take a few days. And the pullback itself may or may not be tradable as a short, but just looking at it to see how the market is, how some of these alts are moving. Phantom, same thing. Phantom has definitely put in a top, as in a local top price action wise. Where's it going to drop back to? I mentioned this, I think I mentioned the other day, that what you'd expect to see is exactly what has happened here on this squiggle, although it hasn't swept it yet. But after that false breakout comes back down, it's holding really strong here. If you're a bear, you don't want to see that. You want to see it to come down here, break like that, and then if it bounces back up and is holding, that's fine, because you've had the break, and then you're getting the retest and it's going to go lower. Phantom's doing something different here. It looks like it's going to be one of those frustrating ones, like you see over here. It's going to break down, it's going to break down, it's going to break down. It doesn't. Has a little sweep though. So maybe you'll get something like that. Maybe you get this false rally up, sweep down. You might see another move from Phantom towards the highs. That would be quite interesting. It's holding right around that daily market structure level. Obviously, I don't think it's necessarily great to be getting super long on these right now. What you want to see is what I've been talking about, which is consolidation. And that's what we're seeing. So we're seeing some of these cool off while Bitcoin continues, which is good. Aptos, same kind of thing. Aptos has had this high, which it still hasn't breached. So it's moved above. Are we getting a multi candle false breakout on Aptos? That'll be one thing I'm looking at. Daily bands are important to watch. If Aptos drops back or if they catch up, either or. Right, so if Aptos chops around, the daily bands catch up, bullish. If Aptos has this false breakout, where it breaks out and then it drops back below, if it then holds on the bands and gets back above the breakout level, again, moon. So a couple of good paths there for these coins to have. When I say moon, I mean move to its next area of resistance. So you could see a nice trade from like $7.50 to $10, something like that. I'm not talking anything crazy. I would expect Aptos to have massive resistance around here when it first reaches it. So false breakout potential below this level here, worth watching. False breakout. And of course, if you go to a lower time frame and you're watching that as it happens itself, you probably see a very fast move when that happens. It might be one that if you're on the weekend workshop that you do a preemptive trade on. But anyway, we'll keep Aptos in mind as well. What's happening in stocks yesterday? Another all-time high in stocks for the S&P. Nasdaq obviously following it, but lagging. Gold, kind of doji candle near the highs. Dollar's important. So I mentioned this yesterday. The dollar at the rate cut level from last Wednesday was chopping above, below. Monday, we moved above it initially, back below it, above it again. We're below it now. This is very important. China, the People's Bank of China are apparently going to be going into a big wave of QE. I see everyone talking about this. As China slows down, there's a big wave of printing coming, stimulus. Second biggest economy in the world behind America. Bullish, all else being equal. Dollar below the rate cut level is bullish, but of course it needs to break structure, I would say. You want to see it actually close a daily candle below its lowest daily so far. That'll be a daily BOS. Check in on that. G fucking M. Also, USD CNY. It might have been the other way around, was it? No, is this one? Remember I talked about this? Someone can find the time, but this is the strongest confirmation we have of an impending bull market in risk assets and impending dollar weakness structurally, not just like cyclically, sorry, not just a random rally. 2016-17, when we had the bull market, it was also accompanied with massive dollar weakness against the Chinese yuan. Down. 2020, 2021. After strong dollar moves, we had the full rewind of the dollar move, and it was the bull market. After another strong dollar move, we've seen a break, a lower high bounce, and now, importantly, weekly break of structure. This is a downtrend. Is it going to go all the way back to the lows? If it does, you're going to see a crazy bull market, but the expectation would still be just that it trends down at least to here, because that's the nearest known support, which would be an area I would watch. And I think that this is going to go all the way down. It is not going to go in a straight line. There's going to be bounces, etc., etc., etc. But you should expect to see a significant decline, which is supportive of potential for risk assets to do well, bull market, so on and so on and so on. Why? Because strong dollar means there's high dollar demand. High dollar demand generally means people don't want to have other assets. They're in favor of the dollar. If you want the dollar, you have to sell your Bitcoin. If you want the dollar, you sell your stocks. If you want the dollar, you sell your fucking house, whatever. Weaker dollar means people are looking to generate returns elsewhere, which will push them into different assets. Okay. That's daily levels. Everything's looking pretty good for now. BTC above 61.6. Until it loses that level, we won't talk about anything other than bull markets. And that's it. See that level very clearly. Don't chase into this or FOMO. It's doing this nice compression near the highs, which hopefully is similar to this one, where we have a nice lengthy choppy move. Hopefully it's similar to this one, where we have this nice lengthy choppy move that ends up breaking higher, compressions. So I would like to see going into Friday, so just do this last thing and then I will finish. If I would like to see going into Friday that we continue to compress, so I'd actually like to see it not take the highs out, right? I'd like to see it not taking out these highs and just chopping around until Friday, then the OPEX happens and we break out. That would be a carbon copy in terms of timing, not price. Not going to be the exact same price pattern. But that would be a carbon copy of this January move. If you go back and check, 8 a.m. UTC, Friday, 26th of January, was January options expiry. I traded this, if you go back and check, remember, I was long and I said, we won't go above 42 before Friday. We probably won't go above 40 before Friday. Not because I'm a genius, but that's because what the options level we're saying. Once you get into the start of this week, the options levels were pretty clearly set. There was pretty big open interest around 40, so it was unlikely that we were going to close the month at 40, or sorry, close the options expiry at 40. And if you want to see how precise this can be, this is the 8 a.m. So at the open at 8 a.m., if you look in the top left up here, at 8 a.m., when the options expired, it was 39,950. It closed just below. Options expiry was just below 40. Then, almost immediately, there was like a release valve because price was being held down, and we pushed, and we hit 42 that same day. Hopefully, 65k acts as something similar going into the weekend. Why? $65k in terms of our monthly and quarterly OPEX is the highest open interest, highest call wall that we have. It's not crazy. We have decent amount at 60, we have some at 62, we have some at 63. Since we're above 63 and we're below 65, I would expect it probably stays between those. If it gets above 65, you can see there's a bit at 6, 7, 8, but really there's not much to 70. So that's why if you get above 65, you could shoot to 70. But I would expect, again, it doesn't happen. I would like to see some chop this week. It means trading conditions will be more difficult for a few days, but you probably get the best swing move at the end of it. And that's it. And what great timing. I'll be on with Professor Ayush this Sunday again for a stocks and crypto crossover. Sunday, we're going to chat about all things to do with stock market, crypto, macro, elections, GM.